Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last day of this. So I'm Bruce Silcoff. I'm CEO of Shyft. I seem to be traveling the world of late, talking about blockchain and how it's going to change the world, which it will do. Just got back from Hong Kong, Manila, Singapore, heading to San Francisco and New York from here. Love London. I'm passionate about what we're doing at Shyft, so I'm glad to share it with you guys today. I got to start off, though, and put out a disclaimer. We are not an ICO. We are a utility token. We just use tokenization as a way to align the economic and political incentives of our players in the network, along with the tokens being the fuel or the gas to make sure that the network functions properly. Now my story. Why are we here today? There's a problem. There are 7 million data breaches on a daily basis in this world. Almost 300,000 of them every hour. About 5,000 of them every minute. So what it means is, by the time I get on my plane tomorrow, you're going to have 7 million additional identity records breached. By the time I finish this session, there'll be 50,000 of them. Of those, 69%, approximately 70%, have to do with ID, your personal data. I don't know about you, but that scares me. So again, by the time I get on a plane tomorrow morning, 5 million pieces of identity data will be compromised. That's a problem. In 1984, Andy Warhol, and I'm old enough to remember this, Andy Warhol made a public service announcement saying it's 10 p.m., do you know where your children are? Let's move that a little forward to 2018 and make it more relevant. It's 2018. Do you guys know where your personal data is? We have an epidemic, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? The people we are trusting with our personal data cannot do the job. Okay? Here's what's happening today. We have repetitive data collection. It means a lot of people are collecting and storing the same data. It's in multiple locations. It's all centralized. When it's in one location, that makes for an attractive target for people to go after. It's also with compliance. Money laundering is a huge problem today. Out of the World Economic Forum, a statistic was released that up to 15% of the world's GDP is criminal activity, and it's growing. Huge problem. So the system we're using for anti-money laundering and for KYC has to be fixed. And siloing the data. People that are collecting the data are not sharing that data across borders, across institutions. Even you talk to some of the banks, even within departments of the same bank, they're not sharing data. That's a problem. It's a costly, inefficient, and insecure way of managing data. What we need to do is we need to streamline that data. We can't have this data collected by every single place we touch and need to do business with. We need to create a network where that's shared and not duplicated. Decentralized storage. The whole principle behind blockchain is decentralization. And compliance efficiency. I was just in Barbados, and Royal Bank in Barbados moved out of their wealth management because the cost of compliance was a burden and excessive. So we got to make the system more efficient. And interoperability is cool. We have to make it so that there's no friction between sharing data across institutional and regional boundaries. Fortunately, I delivered the bad news. I also got the good news. Shyft has the remedy for the epidemic. We are leveraging our proprietary blockchain to essentially create a global distributed network for sharing trusted data. Now, we started off because of money laundering, building this for KYC, AML purposes. But at the end of the day, it's any kind of data that could be shared across our borders. Across our network. So it could be medical records or any kind of data you want to share. How it works, we connect individuals who own the data the people, you and I, with those who hold and validate that. We call them trust anchors, and then those that need it. So let me give you an example. I'm an individual. I go into a bank. I want to open up an account. For them to give me a bank account, they have to access my personal data to do a KYC AML check on me. What we do, instead of having to go through that process over and over again, me as an individual provides consent to the network to allow the trust anchor to validate my data that's already been collected. And in turn, that validated data is shared with the bank that wants to open up the account for me. From a client or from the bank opening up that new account, it makes sense because it reduced costs and the resources to do the KYC AML. I don't know if you're familiar, but JP Morgan about a year and a half ago had to hire 13,000 additional people just to do KYC AML at a cost of about $100 a customer. You know, that really is a tough way of running a business, a not efficient way. From a trust anchor's perspective, those who have already spent the money and done the KYC AML, it's a way for them to now monetize that data with the network. And for me as an individual, less risks of hacking because my data isn't all over the place, and I could get decisions on whether I want a bank account, a new credit card, done almost instantaneously while I'm sitting in the chair. Now, from our network, why we're so excited? Because there's a desperate need for what we're doing. So we're getting interest from governments, from regulators, from central banks, financial institutions, banks, telcos, social networks. You see it, crypto exchanges, any exchanges, NGOs, hospitality industry. The demand is there. That's why I'm traveling the world. And our network has really had a lot of interest. We are very excited about the people that are coming on board and the number of data points that we're going to have. What we're doing next also is going to redefine who Shyft is. We're leveraging biometrics and social physics to create reputation and credibility scoring for those that are under or unbanked in this world. There are 3.5 billion people in this world that do not have access to banking. We are going to be able to leverage biometrics and social physics to track up to 1,400 behavioral identifiers on your cell phone to be able to provide banking services to those 3.5 billion people in this world that currently don't have access to it. We're using AI and machine learning to increase the security of the data. We're going to stripe data, which is going to increase between blockchain and machine learning. You can get anywhere to up to 100 times greater security. Electronic IDs, we're developing a framework with the governments around the world, like Bermuda, where we're building a whole EID system for their population. Refugees, we're working with the European Economic Commission. Big refugee problem where people are coming across the border with fake IDs, or if they come across the border, they're selling their IDs to pay for food. So it's because the analog way of handling IDs is not working. We're going to move it to a digital system. Working with a lot of governments, and at the end of the day, we're not only using blockchain for economic reasons, and this is what gets me up in the morning and gets me really passionate about what we're doing. It's the social impact that we're going to be able to impart on this world. There are 1.1 billion people in this world that don't have legal ID. That means they don't have access to essential services like healthcare, like schooling, the right to vote, right to own property. We're going to enable that. We're going to solve that. So we're working with all kinds of organizations around the world to solve that problem. That makes me, as a person wearing the S on their chest, really proud to be a part of this organization. When people look at a company, they look at two things. One, the use case, and two, who are the people behind it? We have probably the best advisor board, bar none. We have people that are the people in the crypto, who started crypto, the guys like Anthony Diorio, who was a co-founder of Ethereum. Business, we have an SVP from MasterCard. And from your British Parliament right here, we have Lord Anthony St. John. We also have someone from FATF on our board. That is it. I got the time's up sign, so I will close with that. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. We've got time for questions. So can we put up the Slido? We've got 5 minutes for questions. So anyone from the audience, we've got a mic down the front. Just put your hand up. Any questions from the audience? One up here. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just curious, what sort of adoption have you got today, and how are you going to get critical mass?
So what, I didn't hear the first part. I heard of critical mass.
What sort of adoption of your solution have you got already, and how will you generate critical mass so that it's a commonly used solution throughout all organizations?
Okay, so the way to get critical mass is to go after networks. Okay, as opposed to going bank by bank by bank, we are working with entities that already have that. So we're working with an association of telcos, for example, that has 60+ telcos and about 1 billion consumers as part of their network. We're working with the likes of MasterCard and Visa, who each have 25,000 banks in their network to onboard those data points. Does that answer your question?
Any other questions from the audience? One down here.
So how many banks do you have that have accepted this? How many banks do you have that accepted this technology and that will accept your validation of KYC? And the second part is, how often do you have to update it? Because usually I find every 3 months they need the same document certified again and again. So how do you cut out that friction point?
So the data is updated in real time. As new information is collected from trust anchors in the network, you get current data. Our credibility and reputation score also is updated in real time based on transactions. In terms of the first question you asked about the banks, they're all begging us. They wanted this yesterday. Okay? Banks do two things. They act as middlemen between transactions, a borrower and a lender. They're the middlemen. The second thing they do is provide trust to the consumer. The reason why we don't put cash in our mattress anymore is because it's not secure. We put it into a bank. As soon as they lose that trust, you take away half of the credibility of the relationship between the bank and the customer. So they are afraid. You see all these data breaches. They are afraid of this happening to them because then they lose that valuable trust relationship with a customer. So they want to come on board as quickly as possible. Now, our tech isn't completed yet. Our test net is probably about a couple of weeks away. Mainnet, we're looking at probably October 1st. So as soon as we're ready, they're all waiting in the wings.
Is that just for individuals or businesses as well?
So ours is an enterprise solution, although individuals will be able to have access to provide consent through a wallet.
We've got a couple of questions coming up from the audience, so why don't we take a couple of those? The legal and regulatory issues you're being confronted with, and what you expect your lawyers to bring to the table.
What do I expect my lawyers to bring to the table?
I don't know, but it'll cost a lot. So why don't you just take the first half?
Here's the interesting thing about that. We as business people for years rely on our lawyers and accountants to protect us, but this is all a new frontier, so we seem to be teaching them more than they're teaching us nowadays. But we're working with the big boys and hoping their expertise in business and ours could collaborate. And that was something interesting, actually, the gentleman from IBM said yesterday. It is about collaboration. Okay, so what legal or regulatory issues are you currently being confronted with, and what do you expect your lawyers to bring to the table? That was the first one. How do you protect personal data also from governments? I'm not sure I understand that question. How do you protect personal data from governments? Well, the data in our...
Can the person who asked that question just clarify what you were getting at? We've got a mic down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you've explained to us you're collecting very personal and I believe sensitive data through sensors, biometrics, and all of that. And you're also working with governments across the world, so this data can be used for the good, but also for bad. So how do you prevent you becoming a tool to very bad things, basically?
That's a very good question. So as part of the network, you do have reputation scoring as part of it. We do make sure that the people that are participating in the network are vetted trust anchors, have good reputation scores. You can't just as an individual, like you as an individual can't come to our network and access it. It is an enterprise solution, and we're very careful as to the reputations of those participants.
Let's just take one last question. Are you putting the actual data on a blockchain, or is it the verification that's stored?
Okay, so the data is being stored at the location where it was originated. So a bank will have that data themselves. What we are doing is we are providing attestations and validations to those data across the network, and then sharing it in a secure manner to the user on the other side.
Okay, thanks very much. Big thank you to Bruce from the Shyft Network.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.